friends. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of the Girls Do Philosophy podcast. Today's guest is I am Taboth. He is a spiritual educator and healer on Instagram. Back in 2023, December 2023, I discovered one of his videos where he spoke about realizing that his childhood psychosis was actually a spiritual journey. And in January, we decided that we were going to do this podcast together because this is a story worth sharing. So I'm very, very honored to have him on as a guest, and here's a little bit of an introduction to Taboth.
When I was a child, I was going to psychiatrists and psychologists because my mom told me that there was something wrong with me. And there was. I had a lot of shit going on with me. The doctor said I had a form of psychosis. Time went by. It kept getting worse. Then in 2020, I was diagnosed with a personality disorder, borderline personality. And that made it worse. Not knowing it, but it just got worse. And then I lost everything in 2022. And it wasn't until I wanted to end my life that I was told I was on a spiritual journey. Then I knew that I had to let go of my fears, let go of my ego. I had to face myself. And let me tell you, nobody could help me. No one could help me. I could only help myself. And here I am a year later, all gone. I go to the doctors. They say I'm healthy. I'm fine. My mental state is great. What do you call that? What is that called? How to heal from mental disorder. I have the answer. In order to eliminate a disorder, there must be order. So yes, you can hear voices. Yes, you can see things. Yes, you can have crazy thoughts. But this is a disorder, meaning that there is no real order because you don't know who you are. You want to know how I truly healed psychosis? I'm going to tell you right now. Right now, I have something right next to me. I have had this thing follow me my entire life. And I'm going to tell you right now that this thing that has been following my entire life, in the beginning I was so scared of it because it was telling me to do bad things to myself and to people. But I was left alone at one point with nothing but this thing. And I learned through this thing that literally saved my life. Saved me from the hell that I was living in the back of my mind. That literally the same thing that told me to do bad things was literally the one part of me that I taught and told, like, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be so violent. I don't have to live this life. And I understood that the more I faced it, the more I started seeing the trauma, and that's the truth that I needed to face, is my trauma. And even after healing so much, and even after going through everything, it's still attached to me. It still talks to me. But now it's not threatening. It's actually calm. It's at peace. And this is what I do every single day. I talk to it. Whatever it is, I talk to it. Yes. And now it listens. And now it's quiet because I taught it. Quiet is key. Silence is key. Being yourself is knowing how to accept yourself. No matter what the world thinks. Psychosis is not what you think, because I did it. And I overcame this part, this fear. And now I teach it, whatever this is, whatever that's following me, how to love.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs. All I ever had, redemption songs.
Welcome to the first episode of the Girls Do Philosophy podcast, and I'm very grateful to have you here. You are becoming one of my favorite people on social media, especially in the spiritual community.
Thank you.
There's so much that I feel like you have to talk about. So my first question is, who is Taboth? Share a little bit about yourself and where that name came from and what you do on social media.
Well, what I do on social media, I am basically a spiritual educator slash healer. So the way that it all started is actually a very interesting story. Basically, what happened was I went through some sort of dark night of the souls. However it's described, honestly, through my own experience, I know that every single person has a different experience when it comes to realizing something about the self. And that's exactly what happened to me. So it was always around as a child, and it kind of calmed down as I grew older, like middle school and high school. It wasn't that bad. And then after I graduated high school, it all of a sudden everything just came back like immediately. And it all did happen after a psychedelic trip. And I learned more about myself through that experience. However, I was very alone and scared. I guess that was the realization that I came to that realization of loneliness, because I understood that I was the only person that was experiencing what I was experiencing. No one actually was there to understand or help, but at the same time, it didn't matter to me. I don't know why. I just understood and knew that on my journey, things would be, I would understand it and I would understand it at the same time. And it was 4 years of just darkness. Nothing made sense. Everything was just going down the drain. That's the best way I can describe it. Everything just was falling apart. And it wasn't until 2022 when I had a similar experience with psychedelics, and everything just happened all over again. Everything in 2018 happened again in 2022, and I did not make sense of any of it. It just all came to be. However, I kind of noticed that it was a cycle. Now, I did not understand what that had to do with me going through what I went through, the chaos in my mind and everything that literally put me in this position of kind of lost. I was very lost and also just in a different world. It didn't make any sense. And then that's when I found out I was on a spiritual journey. 4 years later, I found out that whole thing happened because I was on a spiritual journey, and it's not supposed to make any sense. But as time goes by, you find out and you look within to see the answer. And so that's exactly what I started doing, and I started helping myself a lot, actually. And that's where I met Taboth. And it's the strangest thing in the world because it didn't make any sense. The one thing that was literally putting so much hate on me was the one thing that was saving my life afterwards. And it just didn't make any sense. But through Taboth, I learned so much about myself and about what life is all about. And it just, it brings this joy and happiness to me that, all I needed to do was look within to figure out why I was stuck in sadness, right? Just felt this insecurity, the being scared, not knowing why certain things happened in my life. It was a realization deeper than whatever I've been taught in my life, basically, of how life is seen and how one should actually view life. So I met Taboth during the worst time of my life.
Can you share a little bit more about that story? Because a lot of people probably don't know your name isn't actually Taboth.
I go by Taboth because that is the spirit. And so we talk a lot about what I've learned through my journey and how everything played out and me searching for answers. They described it as psychosis. And I was just like, okay, well, psychosis, I thought I found the answer. I thought I was actually going crazy. I thought, like, okay, well, I was told one thing about what is going on with my life. It brought me back to a time where I experienced it all as a child, and it brought me into the same place. That was the only answer that I had at the time, that I was just mentally ill, or like I had this chemical imbalance within my mind. And I guess the more I fed myself that information, the more it became a reality, and it became a way of thinking and being. And so then it would not leave my side. I didn't understand what was going on. It was like I was constantly being followed by something, and it did not make any sense whatsoever. And then as time went by, I noticed that I didn't have any more help. I had no choice but to let go of everything when I saw that everything was leaving. And when I say everything was leaving, I mean like the job, the money, the school, the people. Everything was leaving once again for the second time. And this time it was different. I guess the best way you can describe it is a cycle. It was just a repetitive cycle, but this time this cycle was breaking. And that's what it all led to that point. It was just the chaos and the torment that my spirit put me through, or whoever I am, right, put me through. Literally put me through that because I wasn't seeing the bigger picture of my life. I was actually putting myself down. I was telling myself that I wasn't worthy of change or worthy of love. That, like, there was this story within me, that was putting me to shame and guilt. I understand that whatever this story is, it had to have been a very big story, because liberating yourself from pain is very hard. You can't liberate yourself from the pain unless you are very honest with yourself about whatever it is that lives deep within you, that you have a hard time letting go of. And some of these stories don't make any sense. But I managed to see past the veil, and that's where I met Taboth.
Do you get over the fear of speaking publicly about these experiences? Because, a lot of people will judge and not understand. So how does one open up about it all?
At one point, I was very scared. At one point, I was very terrified of sharing my story to the world, because you really don't feel like you're understood. You walk around and you try to explain things to people, and nothing makes sense to them. So then to you start asking yourself, you're like, how does this then make sense to me? Nothing makes sense to them, then maybe it doesn't make sense, But after a whole year of staying inside, I kind of did that to myself. I kind of like knew that, like, if I wanted to learn more about myself and I wanted to learn more about this love, I had to go ahead and like separate myself from the world for like, a quick minute. I did for like a whole year. And you kind of learn and understand that that judgment is only coming from inside, because there was nobody around me. And so I had this judgment in the back of my mind of things, of people saying this and people saying that. And then that's when I realized, I was like, it doesn't matter. And then my mind started opening up even more. And then that's when I started learning more about this like universal laws. I started learning more about, the spiritual aspect of life. And you kind of realize that the only reason why a person would go ahead and judge you is because they haven't figured their self out. It's because they're stuck. And so it is scary, And I always tell myself and remind myself that whenever I am scared of the dark, that is just a part of me that's ready to say, like, peekaboo, It's ready to blossom, it's ready to come out, but I can't be scared at that moment in time, because literally it just, that's all a part of that story. The journey of life is it's just unfolding every second. It just unfolds. But we were taught to look at certain things and to see them in a specific label or a specific way of being. And everybody is taught differently. So whenever you are stuck in something, stuck in a belief, stuck in some sort of system, right? And the system is right here in the mind because you're the only one experiencing your life, reality. Then you kind of realize that this judgment is not real, that the judgment is just coming from you because you don't see something within yourself. You're not aware of the fact that you can have the ability to create whatever you want to create in this life. And so that I surpassed the judgment, I surpassed the fear. I realized that if my life is based on something that's called crazy, but the crazy didn't even kill me, it actually saved my life, then I'm not crazy. I can't call myself crazy. And if they call me crazy, they're afraid to admit it. They're afraid to see the truth of love. We all struggle at the end of the day. I have no judgment towards people. I just understand that's how life works.
What do you think the purpose of fear is?
The purpose of fear? Fear is a very interesting friend. Fear is a very interesting friend because there's fear and then there's faith. You have faith too that's playing a role in your life. But then you also have fear. And so fear is basically the version of you that is just a toddler, doesn't know anything. And it's constantly asking, are you sure? But then you have faith, which is like the older brother or the older sibling. That's like, yes, like just trust. So we do need fear because in a way it helps us grow as a person. Everybody comes into this life as a fool. No one knows anything about life. And so then when we don't know anything, we're the child. And we fear. But then once you start wanting to know, like you have this curiosity about knowing more, then it's just like faith comes in, is like, okay, whatever you want to know about yourself will be, and you will know. But the fear is just that toddler. That's all it is. It's just a little toddler that is very scared. But we can also be that version of ourselves that has faith in change.
And to embrace that toddler with love.
Yes, exactly.
So I wanted to talk more about mental illness in like the healthcare industry because I think we both agree that that needs a bit of reshaping.
Yes.
So how do you think we can get modern healthcare to consider that mental illness can be a spiritual byproduct? Do you see that ever happening? Do you see that happening now?
Of course, yeah. There's a lot of people coming out now. A lot of people are coming out and speaking up. There are actually a lot of great spiritual leaders out there that are speaking up that, I'm really inspired by because they're bringing out the word. They're bringing out the truth of how things are within the body. And if there's one thing about people and human beings is that we all want to be okay. We want to be okay at all costs. And this is not just mentally, this is physically and emotionally as well too. So the more we yearn and the more we want change, the more we want to sit here and understand it, of course the science world is going to change. Of course the spiritual world is going to change because we're the ones creating it. We're the ones wishing for this change. We're the ones wanting this answer. So there are a lot of people right now out there as we speak that are spreading the word, that are spreading the answer, because it's not just me. It's not just you. It's a bunch of us that are actually willing to step forward and tell the story. So I do agree that this is some sort of big change that's happening. I really see this like revolution. It's kind of like a time in our lives where, time is now resetting, but not in a bad way. It's just a reset where it's like, hey, like there's new information coming in, and this new information will come to be in this lifetime. Science has always changed. It has not stayed the same since the beginning of time. In the beginning of time, whatever science is teaching now didn't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the new ideas they're always ridiculed, but it's always ever evolving. And this kind of just reminds me of what we were talking about before with thoughts being entities and how our thoughts shape our reality. So can you talk a little bit more about that, your experience with it?
It's very interesting because we think of entities and we say, oh my gosh, bad spirits, or oh my gosh, good spirits. Oh, this is separate from me. But that's not the truth. What it is that we are the spirit, and the spirit is not just one spirit. It's not separate. It's just the spirit has the ability to attract all things. It has the ability to have anything it wants. Now, a lot of people argue with this topic because they're like, well, there has to be something that lives beyond us, or there is something that lives beyond us. We are just human beings. We know nothing about this life, right? And another thing is like we're constantly arguing with ourselves. So it's really hard to understand and comprehend what it means to be a spirit that has the ability to attract all things, right? That doesn't make any sense as well. But when we talk about spirituality and being one with God, oneness, source energy, or spirit, right? Spiritual awakenings, you're waking up to the truth that every single placement in this life is a pattern. Every single placement in this life is a teaching. Every single placement in this life is a way. And it's not just one way. Everybody is doing something different at the same time. So of course you ask that question of like, how is it possible for somebody to be attracted to this thing and I am not attracted to that thing, that very thing that person is into? And it's that thought of you believe what you are, the identity. There's nothing wrong with a spiritual entity. It is what you are attached to that is a little problem. Because, see, when you start changing within you, your body is wanting change. And this doesn't make sense to the individual because they're so used to the same place. They're so used to the same experience, the same way. So, of course, it's like a toddler that doesn't know or understand how to solve multiplication, like when they go to school, but the more they practice it, they learn how to multiply. So it's kind of like the idea of whenever you do have changes in your life, of course, you are now going from one identity to the next. You are not the same identity. It continues to evolve. You continue evolving and becoming a different person. There's no way of describing or knowing why this process even happens. It's just whatever the journey leads you to. Wherever it takes you is wherever you go. And the change happens because you once upon a time wished for it a long time ago. So it's kind of like you're creating it, and then at the same time, the old must go. If you're here a year ago, right, asking for this place, this new place, right, in order for you to get to that new place, everything that you are right now at this moment in time must shift and change a little bit in some way. That's where these entities come in. That's where the change comes in. Because you must detach from one thought to the next thought. This is what's creating the world behind it. If you're a person that watches, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, how do you do that? How do you detach? Like, say somebody is dealing with so many negative thoughts and ideas about themselves and the world. How do they get to that step of detaching?
It's the love that you have for yourself. How are you seeing yourself at that moment in time? Are you saying that you're not worthy of change? Are you saying that you are not worthy of seeing things differently for yourself? Are you stuck in thinking what others are going to think of you if you do make this change? So it's all up to you. It's a journey of the self. It is understanding, hey, do you have the strength to accept this about yourself? Because you're not like anyone else. You are different. So it is very hard to do that. It is very hard to convince yourself that you are worthy of seeing something different about you and not being one with the same thing over and over and over again. You are not the same. You are different every single time.
There's so much power in that.
Thank you. Tell me about you. Like, what about your experience with this whole thing?
It's been crazy. I mean, I had a very rough and traumatic childhood. I grew up strictly Muslim, and then my parents split up, and I went from like being very isolated and in homeschool and like not really knowing anything about the world, straight to just jumping into it at a very young age. And so I have felt very, very lost and misguided in life. And a lot of those traumas brought a lot of insecurities about myself. Like what you were speaking about, we are all different and we need to learn to accept that. And that's something that I struggled with my whole life because of my experiences. But I had a bit of a spiritual awakening a couple months ago, actually less than a year ago, where I felt that I met God and found my purpose and realized that it's to do things like this, allow people to share their story and to spread love. And I think that's all it really comes down to is love. I mean, it's like the simplest and most obvious answer. It's all love. We need to learn how to love ourselves and love each other, love the pain that brought us here, because without it all, without fear and pain, we wouldn't be us.
Right.
So I look at fear and trauma and all of those things as spiritual teachers. It's all here to lead us to us. So
Yeah. It's so chaotic, it's so crazy, but at the same time, it's just like, once you see it, I don't know how to describe it, like that kind of love is unconditional. Because now you don't see that you're alone anymore. You kind of see the world within you.
yeah,
That's exactly how it is.
I'm not the only crazy one. Crazy.
Yeah. And that's so funny. I didn't find out that I wasn't crazy until like 4 years later. So from 2018 to 2022, that's how it was. And then like literally the literally the day I was gonna off myself, right? Because I was already at that moment. I was just like, gosh, like I gotta go because there's nothing else here. My sister starts going through some crazy ass stuff, and I'm just like, and when she describes the story to me, it's literally the same as mine, like similar. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. And I was like, this means something. Obviously, if she's going through it, then I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And that was very relieving.
Did she come to the same spiritual conclusions as you have?
Yes. We have similar ways of seeing life. I really do believe that she came into my life for a purpose, just like how I came into her life. We were both aligned in the same place. And I'm very honored to call her my sibling. You know, she's really amazing, wonderful person. And honestly, without her, like, I don't think I would have, like, made it out of whatever the hell I was in. So that kind of, like, saved my life as well, too.
I'm glad you're still here.
Thank you.
Glad to hear your story.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything that you feel like anybody who's new to this path should know? Anything you wish you had known when you started?
Life is not easy. Life doesn't make any sense. And you have to literally sit there with yourself and you have to be okay with that thought first. You have to be okay with the thought of life is crazy. You have to be okay with the thought of life does not make any sense. We're all here trying to figure it out and we still don't know, right? But you can't see yourself, you can't know yourself if you don't see the reality of things first. Because it's not just you. Everybody is struggling. Everybody's trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to understand it. They don't understand what's going on, and it is a very scary place to be in. The world around us is scary because of the place that we are actually in, and it's our minds. And the mind can be a very scary place. But when you can't tell yourself that that's okay, you will never figure it out. You have to be first okay with the thought. And that's, once you do that, you're having a good attitude towards yourself, because this is respect right there. You're reminding yourself, hey, we weren't promised paradise. We weren't promised a very beautiful palace or a very beautiful, magnificent place where all our worries will go away. No, we weren't promised any of these things. We were brought here, and now we're trying to figure it out, and we got to be very nice to ourselves whenever we are experiencing a very difficult time. So it's always showing up with yourself, with love, with power, with understanding, and an open mind to whatever this is. It's the only way it can calm down. It's the only way that you can go ahead and see beyond the veil. Love always wins.
Amen. And with that acceptance of it all comes openness.
Exactly.
And the more we open up, the more we find each other after finding ourselves. And that's just what I love about doing things like this. It brings community. It really makes people realize that we are not alone. We're one
Yeah,
with love. So
exactly. That's the truth. How can you know how to be okay with the world if it's not even okay, sharing something, you know?
yeah.
You can't be stuck. And that's what people think. They think they're stuck because of judgment. That's funny. That's funny to me now. It's so interesting and strange because I look at how life used to be compared to how life is now. And I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful for myself. Like, I know that whatever is living within me helped me. But I'm very grateful to myself because if I didn't do it myself, I would have never been here. I am very proud of that. And that is something that a lot of people should be, should remind themselves, that you should always show up and tell yourself how proud you are when you do make certain things that make you feel good inside, because you did it for yourself and you saw it through. And I did that. And I look at the difference now, the timeline, like a year has passed by, and here I am in the same exact place I wish to be in. And I had to see everything, but that's okay because I'm here now. I'm here in the place that I actually am very, I can see things in a better light. So I'm really, really hopeful that there is a better future for a lot of people. I'm very hopeful that there's going to be this big, massive change in this world, because for me to get out of this darkness that I was in, that literally did not make any sense, and I'm talking about, it was very, very, very awful darkness. It wasn't even the type of darkness, it's not the type of darkness one talks about, because when you see it and you say that it's not good, it's not good. And if I made it out of this, my gosh, of course I'm going to see a better future. Of course I'm going to see something beautiful in every single person. Maybe not the whole world, but we need that majority up, We need the majority up, because without that majority, the world can't change. So I'm very hopeful.
We're doing it right now. Being the team.
That's what makes me happy.
Yeah. Feeling that purpose.
Yeah.
So, what are some books or resources that helped you on this journey? Anything you would suggest to people?
So, one author that's really good that I would recommend to people is Neville Garter. He was a very interesting man. He spoke a lot about the power of awareness, the power of the mind, the power of how things are, the power of I am. These were books that helped me see the bigger picture of what it truly means to be the creator, what it truly means to be the person in your life that can bring things towards you. And I'm not just talking about physically, I'm also talking about mentally and emotionally. That's where it first starts, is your mental and emotional state. So you can't see certain things without understanding yourself. And so Neville Garter is a very good author that I have read, and he has brought a lot of insight. His information has brought a lot of insight into my life. Another book that I have read is a little bit longer. It's The Kabbalion by the Three Initiates, and it talks about the laws of the universe and the principles as well too. Yeah, it's pretty much those two, and I've read a little bit of Joey Dispenza as well. Joe Dispenza, he's pretty good as well. So yeah, those are books that I do recommend for the audience.
So after sharing your story, is there something that you feel like you wish the world will take away from this discussion, from all the work that you do?
I would like to say that just like me, anybody can do it. And although my story is something that is just merely a story, I wouldn't be able to share it unless it was actually something I was very passionate about. And the same passion that I have for myself is the same passion that I want others around me to seek for in their life. And this passion did not exist once upon a time. And I'm talking about the passion of living life. And I believe that you just have to look at every single day with some form of love. It doesn't have to fully look like something big where you can go ahead and shift and change whatever is in front of you and it's going to disappear in one day. No. It's kind of like showing yourself that acceptance and agreement of healing, because healing is not easy. So always look at life with love through the darkest times, because in the light you won't see it. Whenever you're okay, you don't see it anymore. And that's like every now and then, but when it comes back, you shouldn't be hard on yourself, because one day just doesn't look like yesterday or the time where you were having a good day. It's not supposed to always be a good day. In the darkness, you are learning something about life. So don't be afraid of the dark. Let the darkness be afraid of you for shining bright.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And I just want to say your story is our story. And I'm just so grateful that you're here to share. We're
Thank
all
you.
in this together and
We
walking
are.
another home.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful that you invited me over to this podcast as well too.
Of course.
And I wish you the best. Yeah. It's the recognition of God that is needed in order for one to reach this point of their awakening. Every pattern, every event in your life happened, and it led you to this point. You reach a point of like, I'm done desiring. This desire, what is the desire behind things, it really gets tiring, because then you get to that point of like, there's no point in desiring. Why would I desire if I already have? There's no point in wanting anything and telling myself that I'm missing something. I'm already that. You are God. You are life. You are love.